The Galactic Council chamber was silent. Too silent. Representatives from hundreds of civilizations sat in their high seats, their eyes locked on the grand table at the center. Ornate chairs lined its edges, each one occupied by the most powerful leaders of the known universe. But one chair remained empty. The seat meant for humanity. For centuries, the Council had assumed that humans were extinct. Their homeworld, Earth, had gone dark long ago. Their colonies had been found abandoned. Their fleets vanished without a trace. No distress signals, no signs of war. They had simply disappeared. Some believed they had been wiped out by an unknown force. Others whispered that they had fled, escaping into the void where no one could follow. But now, after so many years, something had changed. A hologram flickered to life above the grand table. A tall, reptilian figure with deep violet scales and piercing yellow eyes stood, his sharp claws tapping against the metal podium. High Chancellor Vereth of the Celari Dominion, one of the oldest members of the Council. Delegates of the Galactic Council, Vereth began, his voice calm, yet laced with unease. We have received a signal. A ripple of murmurs spread through the chamber. Delegates exchanged uneasy glances, their voices hushed but urgent. A signal. From where? Vereth's eyes darkened. He waved a clawed hand, and the hologram shifted, displaying a grainy, distorted image of a barren, lifeless world. Cracked terrain, shattered ruins, and dust-covered buildings stretched as far as the eye could see. The planet was unrecognizable, but the name that appeared beside it sent a shiver through the room. This, Vereth hesitated. This is Earth. The murmurs turned into an uproar. Impossible. Earth was lost. The humans are gone. Vereth raised a hand, and the voices quieted. That is what we believed, he said. Until now. The hologram zoomed in on a structure, a ruined tower barely standing amidst the decay. Then suddenly, the screen flickered. A symbol appeared. It was faint, almost erased by time, but there was no mistaking it. A human emblem. And beneath it, a transmission began to play. It was not in any known alien language. It was human. The voice was distorted, broken by interference, but still chillingly clear. We are not gone. The chamber fell deathly silent. We have ascended, and we will return. The transmission cut off. The hologram vanished, but the weight of those words remained. For the first time in centuries, the Galactic Council was not discussing how humanity had been lost. They were asking, what if humanity was never lost at all? And worse, what if they were coming back? The council chamber remained silent, but the air was thick with tension. The message had been brief, but its meaning was clear. Humanity was not extinct. They had not been defeated. They had simply left. But where had they gone? And what had they become? High Chancellor Vereth's claws tapped against the podium. He scanned the room, observing the fear in the eyes of the gathered representatives. Even the warlike Draknar, a species that prided itself on conquest, seemed unsettled. We cannot ignore this, Vereth finally said, his voice steady but heavy with caution. We must investigate. Across the chamber, a large insectoid being clicked its mandibles together, its wings twitching anxiously. Ambassador Cathal of the Threxian Hive spoke, his voice an eerie blend of chittering and mechanical translation. You wish to go to Earth. Cathal's antennae flicked. Foolish. No one who has ventured to that dead world has returned. No one has tried in centuries. Vereth countered. What if we were wrong about Earth? What if there is something there, something that explains why they left? A deep, guttural voice rumbled through the chamber. Or something that explains why they never returned. All eyes turned toward Supreme Warlord Jorvok of the Krull Empire. His species had once viewed humanity as a rising rival, a potential threat to their dominance. And yet, before any true war could begin, humanity had vanished. The timing had always been suspicious. Jorvok leaned forward, his red eyes gleaming. The humans were never weak. They were never prey. If they left, it was not because they were forced to. It was because they chose to. He exhaled sharply. The question is, why? Vareth took a slow breath. That was exactly what troubled him. The humans had been on the verge of becoming one of the most powerful species in the known universe. Their technology was rapidly advancing, their colonies spreading faster than any other. And then, all at once, they vanished. No war, no plague, no warning. They simply disappeared. And now, after so many years, they had left behind this message. Vareth turned to the assembled council. "We cannot afford to be afraid of ghosts," he said. "We must send a team to Earth. If the humans truly are gone, then we confirm their fate. But if they are not..." He let the thought hang in the air. The council shifted uncomfortably. Some delegates whispered amongst themselves. Others remained frozen in thought. Finally, Cathal let out a low chitter. "Very well," the Threxians said. "But if we awaken something that should have remained buried, it will be on your head, Chancellor." Vareth gave a small nod. He had already considered that possibility. What if humanity had left for a reason? And what if, by returning to Earth, they were about to learn why? The expedition ship Celestial Dawn drifted through the void, its engines humming softly as it neared the dead world of Earth. Captain Ralvik of the Xilari Dominion sat in his command chair, his scaled fingers drumming against the armrest. The crew was tense, understandably so. No one had set foot on Earth in over 5 centuries. Every attempt to investigate had ended the same way: silence. Ralvik's second-in-command, a tall avian named Lirith, stood beside him, her feathered crest twitching with unease. "Captain," she said, her voice hushed. "I don't like this. There's something wrong." Ralvik didn't respond immediately. He stared at the planet ahead, its surface covered in swirling clouds, its once thriving cities now reduced to nothing but ruins, a graveyard of a species that should have ruled the stars. Yet here they were, answering a message from this lifeless rock. "I agree," he finally said, "but orders are orders." A beeping sound echoed through the bridge. The ship's AI spoke in its cold, mechanical tone. "Entering orbit. Scanning surface for anomalies." A holographic display flickered to life, showing a wireframe image of the planet below. At first, everything seemed normal, until it wasn't. Lirith's feathers flared. "Captain, look at the energy readings." Ralvik leaned forward, his eyes narrowing. A single point on the planet's surface was glowing with high energy activity. A power signature, something that shouldn't exist. "That's not natural." Lirith nodded. "Something is still alive down there." Ralvik clenched his jaw. This was no longer just an exploration mission. This was something else, something far more dangerous. "Prepare the landing team," he ordered. "We're going down." The shuttle descended through thick clouds, its hull rattling as it broke through the upper atmosphere. The ruins of old human cities stretched beneath them, massive towers reduced to skeletal remains, highways buried under layers of dust and debris. But there were no bodies, no signs of war, no evidence of a plague, just emptiness. Where did they go? One of the soldiers muttered, gripping his weapon tightly. No one had an answer. As they neared the anomaly, the landscape changed. The ruins gave way to something pristine. A single building stood in perfect condition, untouched by time. Its metallic structure gleamed in the pale light of Earth's distant sun. "That's impossible," Lirath whispered. "Everything else is decayed. But this..." Ralvik felt his stomach tighten. The humans had left something behind. And whatever it was waiting. The shuttle touched down outside the building, its engines hissing as it settled onto the cracked pavement. The landing team stepped out cautiously, weapons at the ready. The air was thin but breathable. The silence was absolute. Ralvik led the way, approaching the building's entrance. A set of massive doors loomed before them, smooth and metallic. No markings, no controls, except for one. A single handprint embedded in the metal. Ralvik hesitated, then slowly reached out. His clawed fingers hovered over the shape. It was too distinct, too well-preserved. It was human. Taking a deep breath, he pressed his palm against it. For a moment, nothing happened. Then the ground rumbled. The doors slid open without a sound. And from the darkness within, a voice, cold, artificial, and unmistakably human. "Welcome back." The voice echoed through the silent ruins, cold and emotionless. The landing team froze, gripping their weapons tighter. "Welcome back." Ralvik's heart pounded. Back? That voice had spoken as if someone was supposed to return. Lirith stepped closer, her talons clicking against the metal floor. "Who said that?" she called out. No response. Then the building lit up. Rows of white lights flickered to life, illuminating a long corridor ahead. The walls were smooth, metallic, untouched by time, unlike the ruins outside. This place was still active. "Stay alert," Ralvik muttered, motioning for his team to move forward. They stepped inside, weapons raised. The air was cold, sterile. The deeper they went, the more unsettling it became. There were no signs of life, no guards, no defenses, yet the facility was fully operational. Lirith glanced at a nearby console. "These systems are still running." She tapped at the interface, but the symbols flashing across the screen were human, unreadable. A soldier beside her frowned. 500 years, and the power's still on. No one had an answer. Suddenly, the lights flickered. A deep hum vibrated through the walls. A nearby panel clipped open, revealing a glowing blue terminal. Ralvik exchanged looks with Lirith. A message? A trap? A warning? There was only one way to find out. He reached forward, pressing the only illuminated button. The room darkened. A holographic figure flickered to life before them. A tall, imposing human, dressed in a sleek uniform. His eyes were piercing, his expression unreadable. And then he spoke. "If you are seeing this, humanity has already left." Ralvik's breath caught in his throat. Left. Not destroyed. Not wiped out. They had left. The hologram continued, its voice steady. "You must be wondering why. The answer is simple. We saw what was coming. We knew what was inevitable." The figure leaned forward, as if looking straight into their souls. "You thought we disappeared. You thought we were lost. No, we walked away. We evolved beyond this petty game of galactic politics, beyond war, beyond limitations." The temperature in the room seemed to drop. "But we are not gone." The hologram flickered. The man's face shifted. His eyes glowed. His voice deepened. "We are watching." Lirith took a step back. "This is wrong." The human's face remained emotionless. ***, you came here seeking answers. You will find none. The only thing you need to understand is this. We have not abandoned our homeworld. We have transcended it." Ralvik felt a knot form in his chest. The humans had left, but they had not disappeared. They were out there, somewhere, and they were watching. The hologram's eyes locked onto them. "Leave. Now." Then the lights shut off, and the doors behind them began to close. The doors slammed shut behind them with a metallic hiss. The sudden darkness swallowed the team, leaving only the dim glow of their suit lights flickering against the smooth walls. Lirith's feathers bristled. "Captain." "I know." Ralvik's voice was tense. He lifted his rifle, scanning the corridor. The humans had warned them to leave. But now, it seemed, they were trapped. A deep mechanical hum echoed through the halls. The very air seemed to vibrate. Then, footsteps. Heavy, slow, not human. Ralvik spun toward the sound, weapon raised. Nothing. A soldier named Korak clicked his mandibles nervously. "Something is moving." The footsteps stopped. Silence fell over them again. Then, a whisper. Not words, not speech, something deeper, like a thought pressing against their skulls. a presence they couldn't see. Lirith gasped. "Do you feel that?" Ralvik did. It was like an unseen weight, pressing into his mind. Something was watching them. Not just watching. Listening. Lirith's eyes darted around the room. No species has ever evolved beyond its own limits. That's impossible. Ralvik wanted to believe that. But the weight in his skull, the feeling of something immense, just beyond his understanding, proved otherwise. A hiss filled the chamber. Lights flickered back on, not white, but deep red, warning lights. And then, in the center of the room, the hologram returned. Only this time, it wasn't alone. Figures emerged from the shadows, tall, silent. Their forms flickered between reality and something else. Not quite there, yet fully present. They were humans, but not like before. Their eyes glowed. Their movements were too smooth, too controlled. Their faces were emotionless. Lirith's breathing was fast and shallow. "Captain, these are not ordinary humans." Ralvik's grip tightened on his weapon. He already knew that. One of the figures tilted its head, its gaze locked onto him. Then it spoke. "You should not have come." The voice was layered, as if spoken by many minds at once. Ralvik stepped forward. "Where is humanity? What have you become?" The figure smiled, but it was not a kind smile. "We became what the universe feared we would." The lights flickered again, and this time, the walls themselves began to shift. The building was alive, and it was waking up. The walls rippled like liquid metal, shifting and reshaping. The air grew heavy, thick with an unseen force pressing against their bodies. Ralvik's chest tightened. Whatever was happening, it wasn't natural. The tall, glowing-eyed humans stood motionless, their faces unreadable. The one who had spoken tilted its head again, slowly, unnervingly. "You still do not understand." Lirith's claws dug into her weapon. "Understand what?" Her voice was sharp, but Ralvik could hear the edge of fear beneath it. The human figure took a slow step forward. The movement was too smooth, too controlled. "We did not leave because we were weak." Another step. "We did not abandon our world." "Then why?" Ralvik demanded. "Why did you disappear?" The air vibrated again, a low, droning hum that seemed to seep into their bones. The walls pulsed like a beating heart. The red warning lights cast long shadows that twisted and stretched as if they were alive. The human stopped a few paces away, its glowing eyes locking onto Ralvik. "Because we changed." A second voice, identical to the first, spoke from the far side of the room. "Because we evolved." A third. "Because we are no longer bound by the limits of flesh." Ralvik's blood ran cold. There were more of them. He turned his head sharply. The shadows moved. Dozens of glowing eyes blinked into existence, staring from the darkness. Watching. Waiting. Lirith exhaled sharply. "They're everywhere." The human closest to them, or whatever it was now, smiled again. "We watched the galaxy wage war over petty conflicts." Another stepped forward. "We saw species rise and fall, clinging to their fragile bodies, to their fragile minds." A third appeared from the shifting walls. "We let them believe we were gone." Ralvik's hands clenched into fists. "But why? Why leave? Why not take your seat in the Galactic Council?" The first human smile faded. "Because we have no need for seats." The red lights flickered wildly. The walls shuddered. The air grew colder. Then the whispering began again. But this time, it was inside their heads. 1,000 voices, speaking in perfect unison. "We do not need to rule. We do not need to conquer. We have become something more." Ralvik's breathing quickened. This wasn't just evolution. This was ascension. He looked at Lirith. Her feathers were pressed flat against her skull, her eyes darting wildly. She could hear them too. Every soldier in the landing team stood frozen, their weapons useless in their hands. They weren't facing a military threat. They were facing something beyond their understanding. Then the voices spoke again, one final warning. Leave. Ralvik didn't hesitate. Everyone, back to the shuttle. Now. The team moved. They ran through the twisting corridors, the walls shifting, changing, closing in behind them. The building itself wanted them gone. The whispering followed them. You are not ready. You are not worthy. Do not return. They burst through the entrance and into the open air, lungs gasping for breath. The shuttle's engines roared to life. Ralvik turned back one last time. The facility, the impossible, untouched structure, was gone. The ruins stretched endlessly, as if the building had never been there at all. And the whispering stopped. Ralvik didn't look back again. He stepped onto the shuttle, and the doors sealed shut. The shuttle blasted off, engines roaring as it climbed through the dark sky. Ralvik sat in the cockpit, staring down at the planet below. It was over. But was it? Lireth stood beside him, her feathers still pressed flat against her skull. She hadn't spoken since they left the ruins. No one had. The entire team was silent, because they all felt it. They were still being washed. Ralvik's claws tightened on the control panel. What had they just encountered? Those weren't humans. Not anymore. They had become something else. The shuttle's AI beeped. Approaching orbit. Ralvik exhaled and activated the comms. This is Captain Ralvik of the landing team. Mission complete. Prepare for our arrival. The response came immediately. Captain, you need to hear this. Ralvik frowned. What is it? The officer's voice on the other end was tense. It's the Galactic Council. They intercepted a transmission. Ralvik's heart skipped a beat. From where? A pause. Then, from Earth. Lirith's eyes snapped to his. Impossible, she whispered. The comms crackled. Then, a voice played over the speakers. Smooth, cold, inhuman. To the Galactic Council, we see you. The cockpit filled with silence. Ralvik swallowed hard. The message wasn't over. You searched for us. You feared us. And now you have your answer. Ralvik's claws dug into his chair. The voice wasn't a warning. It was a statement. We are not lost. We have not fallen. We have risen beyond you, beyond your war, beyond your fear. Do not search for us again. The transmission ended. Ralvik and Lirath stared at the control panel, the final words burning into their minds. Then, another notification flashed on the screen. Source of transmission detected. Location: unknown. Ralvik's blood ran cold. Unknown. No. Undetectable. Lirith took a slow breath. They're everywhere, aren't they? Ralvik didn't answer, because deep down, he already knew the truth. The humans were still out there, and the galaxy would never be the same.